Hello, this is Brian P., and welcome to Scaling the Well. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of a do-over. I did this podcast. It was one of the first podcasts I did, and I got some feedback on it, and a lot of people said, well, they weren't too clear on the concepts I was trying to convey, and they said some of it went a little bit over their head. Maybe I was talking a little bit too quickly, and then I listened to it again, and the audio wasn't as good as as it could have been because I think I was just learning the equipment, and that's my bad. Continuous improvement, everyone. So it's called Dealing from a Position of Lifestyle. So I decided to do this again and break it down a little bit better. So dealing from a position of lifestyle is a concept I came up with in my undergrad when I was studying behavioral science, and I didn't get this from any curriculum or instructor in my program. It was from a fellow student, a friend of mine. We haven't spoken probably about 3 years now, but still keep up with him on Facebook. And he was kind of the catalyst for this. So as you know, in college, or even if you're not in college, just young people who have goals they want to accomplish, and whatever paths they take to achieve those goals, they're ambitious, and they have maybe a little bit of delusions of grandeur. A little bit. We would talk about different things. I have some friends. I might even have them on the podcast sometimes. Some of these guys who would they wanted to be these big baller types. They wanted to have yachts and jets by the time they were in their mid 30s, and they were just going to be making millions and millions of dollars. And it's that's okay. Ambition is a motivator, and even myself, I think that I had certain things, and I think only one of those guys is actually living that lifestyle. And I think there was like 5 guys who kind of felt that in this particular way about the whole baller brand or whatever lifestyle. And they're not doing that. And that's not because they're not doing well. They're doing okay. Sometimes things happen in your life, but a lot of the times, and as you heard me talk about this in the dating podcast, is that some of the things you like when you're younger, you're not going to like when you're older. Your priorities change, and that's a good thing. And so if your priorities change, maybe you get married, maybe you have children, maybe just your worldview changes, and you start appreciating things more. Maybe you had an illness, and you look at life a little bit differently. Things happen, and people's priorities change, and change is okay, and change can also be a positive. So anyway, we were all talking about our great lifestyles that we're going to have when we graduate, and I had this one friend, and it was he was very interesting, and I really like him. And this is the friend I was initially talking about. He played in a reggae band, and I always thought that was really cool and interesting because that's I'm not a musician. I played trumpet when I was in junior high. That's as close as I came to actually doing anything musical. But actually, I was in a rap group. We'll talk about that later. That's another area of my life that is kind of funny. But yeah, he was a bass player, white guy, German roots, German ancestry, and he was good, and he played in a reggae band. I think there was like another 5 other members in his band, and we connected because we were both adopted. So that's how we kind of started talking and, meshed, so to speak. And he would begin inviting me out to the concerts and stuff. And so when we started talking about his goals and his ambitions, he said, hey, I want to, go to Jamaica like every year, and I want to, play music, and I want to, just be at the beach, and that's what I want to do. And I was just like, wow, And so a lot of us, who knew him, we thought, man, that was one of those. We were thinking he was one of those big baller type, super ambitious type guys, because we thought that's going to take a lot of money, to do that. Every year, you have that scheduled and blah blah blah. And so eventually, when we graduated, and I didn't think how I didn't understand how he was going to do it, because the degree he was getting wasn't a degree that traditionally yields a high income. But I don't know, maybe he had some tricks up his sleeve. But he ended up becoming a teacher, and as we know, even as I'm doing this podcast, there's teacher strikes going on throughout the United States. My mother was a teacher, so I can tell you, teachers are severely underpaid, nationwide. And it's not a profession that you say, wow, I'm going to have like a jet setting type of lifestyle, and I'm going to be able to do what I want when I want. So, well, just to kind of jump to the end of the story, he is living that lifestyle. He is going to the beach in Jamaica every year, playing music. He found a group of guys he plays music with all the time, and sometimes he plays alone. He plays at some clubs out there, some bars. He's made a lot of good relationships out there, and he is right by the beach. He stays there every summer. How did he do it? Well, he's a teacher. He gets his summers off. That right there is half the battle, right? He has the time to take off. And when you're a teacher, at least in the jurisdiction he works in, you can choose to either get paid less every month so you can continue to get paid through the summer, or you can just try to save money and then make sure you have enough money for those summer months when you're not working. So he chose to get paid, paid a little bit less every month, so his paycheck, even when he's not working during the summer, he still receives a paycheck. He still gets that direct deposit into his bank. So he's going out there every summer, and he's still getting paid. So that's smart, right? But even if he didn't do that, he could have just saved money on his own, been very disciplined throughout the school year and saved up that same amount of money. He doesn't stay at 5-star resorts. He's made some connections out there because he's been doing it for so long now. But when he first started, he was a single guy, and he stayed, in like little shantytown type places, and places that didn't cost any money. And then he's made friends, and then sometimes he would even get to stay a few nights for free. So so this is what I call dealing from a position of lifestyle. It was basically, he took, a vision of what he wanted his lifestyle to be, and then worked backwards from there, as opposed to a lot of my other friends who just thought, I'm going to earn as much money as possible. I know it needs to be in the millions because I know my lifestyle is going to be huge. It's going to be huge, and that's like, money, is a number. So if your goal is to have $10, you can always make 11. If you have 11, you can always make 12. If you have $1 billion, you can make $1 billion and one. So when do you actually get to your lifestyle if you're focused on making money? Now, I'm not saying that you should never focus on making money, but money is a lead measure, and it's not even a big league measure. It could be so when I talk about this, and I think this is where it broke down in the last podcast I did on this topic, I need to explain some of these concepts. So when I was in my master's program, and I wasn't even able to articulate this as well before I got to this particular instructor. So even though I took a big break between my undergrad and my master's, but it was so enlightening to find out that, the things that they teach you when you get your MBA, they teach you strategic planning and implementation, finance, accounting, and all these things. They don't teach you execution. They teach you how to, these are the things you need when somebody else has a plan, and so you can go work for them and do these things and implement these things for them. But how to execute and having a plan to execute or an outline to execute is never really taught. So the 4 disciplines of execution were developed by Franklin Covey. You can look it up online. This isn't my stuff. This is this has been out there for a while in their curriculum, and they have books and classes on it. Basically 4 things, and now there's a lot that goes into these 4 things, but I'll just go over them really quickly. First, you focus on the wildly important. Second, you focus on the lead measures, and we'll tell you what those are. Make a compelling scoreboard is number 3, And then accountability, whether if you have a team of people, you have to hold all of them accountable for their roles and what they need to do, and so let's say you want to run the mile in under 10 minutes. Let's say you want to run it in 9 minutes, 30 seconds. And your current time, the last time you tried to run a mile, was 10 minutes, 40 seconds. Okay, well, the leg measure, and I didn't talk about that, but as opposed to the lead measure would be the stopwatch at the end of your run, whatever time is on that stopwatch. So you run a mile right now, and it says 10 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever. Well, that's a leg measure. Well, that's easy to focus on, but it doesn't really tell you what to do to improve. So your lead measures are the little things you need to do to get that time down, whether that's getting up at 5 a.m. every morning and going on a run before you go to work, changing your diet, maybe you're overweight, maybe you need to be in the weight room, maybe your leg muscles and stuff, you want to develop a little bit more, whatever it takes. I'm not a running expert, so I couldn't tell you, buying better shoes, stretching, all these different things that runners do. Those would be the lead measures, and those are harder because those are things that you do on a daily basis, and you have to do them consistently, and you will know if they're effective by the third thing, which is the scoreboard. Like, is your time going down? What are you doing every day? And then, of course, the fourth thing, the accountability, doing those things every day and holding yourself accountable for doing those things, setting your alarm and things like that so you can wake up and run. Doing food prep, meal prep, and things like that. So those are basically the 4 disciplines of execution. So dealing from a position of lifestyle is not saying don't do those things. What it's saying, is basically, you have a vision, and then you can find out what your lead measures are, right? Because if your vision is just this weird kind of generic, I'm going to live in a penthouse, and I'm gonna be driving a Bugatti, and I'm gonna do this. Well, none of those things are really. I'm not saying that those aren't goals, but those aren't really lifestyles. Those are things. It doesn't really say what you're actually doing. Do you have a wife and kids? Do you, what are you doing as a job? You should probably focus on your job in order to get those things. Or if it's starting a business, focus on your business, then implement those 4 disciplines of execution. If you want to be a restaurant owner or even own a chain of restaurants, then that's, dealing from a position of lifestyle. You can picture yourself in that restaurant, coming up with these type of recipes, maybe it's your grandmother's recipes or whatever. And then you work backwards, and how do I get to be that entrepreneur? How do I open my first restaurant? It might not even be a restaurant. You might start as a food truck, or it might just start as a catering service or whatever. So what made it interesting is that he is very specific, Jamaica, summer, beach, music. That's all. That was his. It wasn't complicated, and we all thought that, wow, you had to have a lot of money to do that. No, he's doing it on a teacher's salary. I think he makes around $50,000 a year. And some people say, well, that's a lot of money. Well, in Southern California, that's not a lot of money. Let me tell you, it is not a lot of money. And I don't even think when he first became a teacher, which was probably over 10 years ago, it was a lot of money even then, in Southern California. So, yeah, so he did it, and it was a really good thing to do. So how does this apply to other things? So, well, you could use it for, like, let's say you're buying a car. Well, you focus on a position lifestyle. So maybe you're not a good wheeler dealer. You don't know a lot about cars. You don't even know a lot about finance, right? You just know that this is the car you want. It's gonna fit your needs, and this is the amount you can afford to pay, and you stick to that. And then you have to be willing to walk away, right? So I'm not saying that you compromise on everything. You don't. You have to be non-compromising, because you're not going to always be able to be the smartest guy in the room. So you're going up against a car salesman who's been doing this for 20 years. You're not going to beat him. Every guy has his ego, like, oh, I got the best deal on a car. It's whatever. My point is that if you know what you want and you're happy with what you've decided to pay for a particular vehicle before you even go to the dealership, and you get that, then you won. And there's a lot of people that I know who they don't look at that as the goal. They look at that as, I'm going to try to get the best deal possible. Okay, I'm not saying there's something wrong with that, because, yeah, money's a good tool. But let's say you were happy with what deal that you got on your vehicle. You got the vehicle, you signed the papers, you drive it off the lot, and then you find out a week later that your neighbor got it, and he's paying, he got a better interest rate than you, so he's paying $50 less a month than you. Well, that shouldn't make you upset, because you were happy with what you did. Why are you angry now? Because somebody else got a better deal. Maybe a month later they had a promotion and they were giving rebates that they weren't when you needed the car or when you decided to buy a car. Or maybe he knew a guy and he got like a family kind of discount, or he got hooked up. Maybe he does like I do. I'll say it. I mean, it's not a elitist thing. Me and my wife drive BMWs, but we don't buy them brand new. We buy fleet vehicles so when we buy them, they have maybe the last car we bought for my wife had 4,000 miles on it, and it knocked off like $10,000 in depreciation. We don't pay the depreciation on cars, so the amount of money that we pay for a BMW is probably the same amount somebody would pay for a brand new Accord. But people think that we're just, we have, this big baller type lifestyle because they look at the symbol on the hood of our car. It has nothing to do with our lifestyle. We like those cars. We think they're good cars. But at the same time, we found a way not to pay the depreciation on it. And we're willing to drive a car that's honestly what you would be slightly new. They're certified pre-owned vehicles, So, It doesn't mean that we have more money than the next person, and not that should matter anyway. But it's just the way how we figured out how to do it. So when you have a vision of your lifestyle, you stick to it, and then your lead measures will start to come into play, and then you stick to those lead measures, just like in the 4 disciplines of execution. So when is it not good to use the concept of dealing from a position of lifestyle? Well, it's not good when it comes to relationships, for one, because you don't know, because people are way more complicated than quantitative things. They're not quantitative. People are infinite. If somebody is, so like, let's say you have a vision of your life and this person can bring something into you to the table, whether it's he can hire you for a job or whatever, and he's a good boss, but he's a negative influence. He's an alcoholic. He's doing all this, but he actually fits into your program because he's paying you a certain salary or whatever. If you don't, he might not be reliable. How do you know if you're working for his company that company is going to be around in 2 years? There's opportunity costs you have to think about in business and in life. And an opportunity cost is like, well, what am I losing by paying something now? So if you have, if you go to, I don't know, let's say buying lottery tickets, right? If you buy a lottery ticket, if you buy $100 worth of lottery tickets, you're probably not going to win anything. But let's say you think you are. Okay, and that's your business. You can do that, Or let's say gambling. Let's say you play blackjack, and you think that you're going to be just professional blackjack player. And some people have made millions of dollars. Very, very few, but some people have. Well, if you still have to stake yourself. You still have to come to the table with a certain amount of money just to get in the game. And so an opportunity cost would be if you have $10,000. And you show up at a Vegas table with that $10,000, what else could you be using that $10,000 for in the same period of time? And if your goal is to be a professional blackjack player, then do that. if that's your goal, and you studied how to do it, and you've read all the books, and you've been practicing for years, and maybe you made that $10,000 playing blackjack, that's fine. But let's say your goal is to own a restaurant. Let's go back to being a restaurant owner, and you think you're going to make your money playing blackjacks in order to open your first restaurant. Well, that $10,000 could be better spent in the goal of getting that restaurant. You could actually put a down payment on a piece of property. You could develop menus. You could develop flyer. I mean, $10,000 goes a long way when it comes to opening a business. So, is that the best way to invest your money? In other words, is to try to triple it or double it or whatever at a blackjack table, as opposed to putting it directly into your business, or maybe just putting it into an account that has a little bit of interest until you can save up more money to add to it, and then open the doors of your business. So, so that's one thing. And going back to, I kind of went on a tangent, like with people. There's an opportunity cost of hanging out with negative people. And even though they might be giving you a little bit of what you need at the moment, and this can go back, and this kind of always goes back to the dating podcast, which seemed to be the most popular on my site. But, how long are you going to stay with that boyfriend, just because you want to be with somebody and he's giving you that little bit of an emotional spark, or stay with that boss just because you're getting paid? When you could actually, and you might even get paid a little bit less by quitting, but it's in a more sustainable job. It's a job with a company that's been around the last 100 years, so it's probably going to be around for the next 100 years. They haven't laid people off in downtimes. I mean, you can research these type of things, and stability you can build off of, and you can rely on that. You can rely on having the same paycheck you have now next year. Even if you don't get a raise, and so that's an advantage. It's the same kind of advantage as having a fixed cost versus a variable cost in a business, and not knowing what you're going to pay 3 months from now, as opposed to exactly what you're going to pay. You might not be happy with it, but you know exactly what you're going to pay on a particular product or a good or supply that you're going to need to run your business. So, dealing from a position of lifestyle. And even with this podcast, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm throwing out a lot of concepts, and people are going to break it down. So let me try to wrap it up into something simple. It's basically coming up with your vision of how you want to live, and then working backwards from there. And by working backwards, you're going to find those lead majors. You're going to find the things that you need to do. So if those lead majors say, well, what do I need to, how do I spend my summers in Jamaica? Well, I need time off during the summers. So that means I need to be able to afford, at most jobs, they're not going to give you 2 months off. If you work for AT&T, you can't just say, hey, I want 2 months off every summer. So you find a job that is maybe not open during the summer, and then a teacher would be one of those jobs. And then you find out how much is it going to take. Well, does it matter to you where you live or where you stay? Everybody has their own Jamaica in the summer. Everyone has that. We just need to find out what we need to do to get there. And once we find out what we need to do to get there, we're happy with it, and that's what we stay with. We find out somebody else is staying in Aruba for 3 months. We don't get unhappy for that, because we accomplished our goal, right? Remember, Jamaica, beach, music. Make it simple, stick to it, and then find out what you need in order to get there. And now once you get there, you might think, oh, well, now that I've accomplished this, I want to accomplish something else. That's okay too. That's fine, But remember, your vision and the lifestyle you want to live is yours, and that's something that's personal, and it's something that you can apply throughout life, And it's something that you need to do when thinking about getting into relationships. If you picture yourself in Jamaica at the beach every summer, and you date somebody who hates Jamaica, hates water, hates reggae music, well, how is that going to be sustainable long term? You know, and like I said, I'm just using this as an example. You know, everybody's going to have different lifestyles that they're going to want to live. So if you want to spend, you know, be a writer and you want to live in Colorado and in the mountains because that inspires you, and you know, whatever. And there's somebody who doesn't like high altitude. Well, that's not going to be sustainable if you want to date that person long term. You know, and that goes to even more things. Why do you think people break up once they have children? Because one person didn't really want to have children. They may not have thought of their lifestyle. You know, they just thought about being with you, and then they said, "Well, we'll work anything else out because I just like being with this person." That's not enough. You gotta think things through. And I'm not saying that you should think of your life like a business. All I'm saying is you should think. And if you can get that far, if you can think, right? Think about tomorrow, the next day, and have your strategic plan, right? Every company has a strategic plan. That's why everybody asks you when you have a job. It doesn't matter if you're working at McDonald's or if you're going to work at Google. They want to know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because that's what they ask themselves. Every company has a strategic plan, and it's usually 5 years. Then they have an operational plan, which is 2 years. If you can ask yourself that, and if this particular person doesn't fit into that strategic plan, and that's something you really want, you have to ask yourself, 1, can I stay with this person? Or 2, am I willing to alter my plan for this person? And the answer is not with me. The answer is with you. But I'm just saying you need to ask yourself that question. So when I say deal from a position of lifestyle, basically have a strategic plan for yourself. And once you have that strategic plan, you will develop the operational plan. What do you need to do in order to get to that 5-year goal? And you can do that in relationships, money, and all those things are going to fall under it. But then you'll know how much, right? Because sometimes we just say, I need more money. And then I can ask you, why do you need more money? You're not going to be able to give me an answer. Well, I have a hard time paying my rent. Okay. Well, maybe you have a hard time paying. If you have a hard time paying your rent because you're going to school right now and you're not working full time, or you're working a job, you know, or you're working 2 part-time jobs, you know, and that's not paying you a lot. Maybe it's okay to struggle for a limited period of time if that's in pursuit of your goal. If you're just struggling and you don't know why you're struggling, and then I ask you, okay, well, what do you want to do? Or what's your goal? And you don't have one. Well, then you're going to be in a perpetual struggle, because more money means what? Let's say you did make you did get that, you know, $2 an hour raise, and now you're the assistant manager at Pizza Hut, you know. Okay, you're doing a little bit better. You have more money, but you still don't have a goal. So you're still going to be unhappy, and you're still going to consider yourself struggling. But if you have a goal and you're working towards that goal, you don't consider yourself struggling. You're sacrificing, right? And that's the difference. The difference between people who struggle and people who are sacrificing is that one has a goal. And that's it. And so dealing from a position of lifestyle is basically saying, get that goal. And once you get that goal and you start working towards it, and if you're struggling, it's not struggling anymore. It's sacrificing. Struggling is for people who don't have goals and they don't have money. There's people who have money and they think they're struggling. I'm struggling with relationships. I can't meet the right person. Well, have you tried? What do you want? And they can't answer you. Well, then they're going to continue to struggle. So if that's the only thing you got from this podcast, then I think that I was clearer than I was last time, and I'm satisfied with that. This is Brian P. Hope you guys are doing well. See you next time.